Alright Marras, welcome to the TML Craft Design Show. So today I'm going to do a LITTLEBODZ of one of my favourite Tarantino characters, but I'm also going to give a review on Tarantino's novelisation of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and which version you should buy. So the character that I like most in the film is stuntman Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt. So the film came out in 2019, but the accompanying novel released in 2021, and it adds an absolute ton of depth to what I feel is already a very, very deep film. Just working out the proportions for the face and where everything's going at this point, just onto the sideburns and hair here. I kind of overdid it on his jawline there, but the pencil stage is, as I say, just for feeling out where everything's going. And I will be going over the piece in black liner pen. So now I've found the reference photo for the body and his outfit. Again, I've kind of made a little error, but that's why rubbers exist, and as I say, I will be going over it in black liner pen soon anyway. So, to get back to the book, if you are a fan of the movie, I 100% recommend buying. As I already mentioned, it adds a lot of depth, but also some alternative scenes. For instance, at the start of the movie, Rick Dalton meets Al Pacino's Marvin Schwartz in a diner. But in the book, this meeting takes place in Marvin Schwartz's office. As well as that, there are also scenes that didn't make the film, but did make it to the book. As well as a lot of backstory for many of the characters, but mainly for the man I'm drawing today, Cliff Booth. Reading the book, you'll get to find out how Cliff ended up owning Brandy the pit bull, a chapter I particularly loved, which goes on about the type of movies that Cliff is interested in. And I had already liked him beforehand, but finding out that, like myself, he appreciates foreign cinema and is a massive fan of Akira Kurosawa, in particular the works in which he collaborated with Toshiro Mifune, who's one of the best actors of all time. Now I'm adding in the black liner pen, which I've mentioned several times. I always enjoy this part of a picture, as it is when, for me, it starts to really look like the person, or at least I like to think it does. In the book we also see Cliff before his time in Hollywood, briefly contemplating a career as a pimp in Paris. And it also clears up one of the mysteries in the film of whether or not Cliff killed his wife. And I'm not going to tell you if he did or not. You'll have to buy yourself the book to find out. So, Brad Pitt won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor playing Cliff Booth. I honestly think the film should have swept the awards. It can be a bit of a slow burner, but over time, and with each rewatch, it's probably become my favourite Quentin Tarantino movie. Now, I'm onto the fine details of this shirt, and I could have made my life so much easier by drawing him in a different outfit, like his blue denim jacket. But I really like the shirt. I feel it exemplifies his character more, and I'm a bit of an idiot, so yeah. Hair's something I really struggle with, but I've started getting better with it with each picture. Black liner pen really benefits the look for this type of a hairstyle. As a side note, I wish I could grow such cool sideburns. So now the black liner section is just about done. I'll just rub out any remaining pencil. So there's a hardback edition of the book, as you can see there. I really like the art on the front of it. In Tarantino style, there's a woman's feet on it. The hardback includes stills from the movie, posters from Rick Dalton's movie career, and a Mad Magazine comic lampooning his Western TV show, Bounty Law. I'd personally recommend getting the hardback edition just for these extra features. But if you do just want the story and a cheaper version, go for the paperback. The cover is different, but he has still managed to stick Margot Robbie's feet on there. Get up there, Quentin. So now we're on to the colour stages, and I use Copic markers for the colours. I start off with lighter tones. I did start with a bit darker here, realised the error, moved to a less harsh colour to begin with for the base, because I had the darker shades on top, as it's actually impossible to put light colours with the Copic markers on top of a darker colour, which is the absolute opposite of what I would do if I was painting with acrylics. In that case, I would start with the dark colours on bottom and then put the light colours on top. As soon as I started adding the hair colour in here, this is where I really started to feel like I had got the character. I'd forgotten to colour the ear there, but I managed to get it sorted before I went over it in brown. I really enjoy the way that the Copic markers just like bleeds into the paper. It really flows nicely. So just while I'm filling these coloured sections in, I'll delve a bit into the character of Cliff. So he's a Hollywood stuntman who worked with Rick Dalton on Bounty Law as his primary stunt double, but he ends up being blacklisted in Hollywood due to an incident with Bruce Lee, which I'll get to later. So while blacklisted, he basically works as a gopher and a driver for Rick, and doing odd jobs around his house in the Hollywood Hills. Cliff himself lives in a trailer in Vanoy with his pit bull, Brandy. He's a World War II veteran and the recipient twice of the Medal of Valor, and he's credited as having offed more Japanese soldiers than any other American during the war, and specialises in close quarters combat. And it's that military background and the fact that he's kind of a badass trained killer that he's able to go toe to toe with and start to get the better of Bruce Lee in a fight. Now, I can understand the controversy with that scene, and I get why Bruce Lee's daughter was upset, but I feel it was to show the viewpoint of how stuntmen felt about Bruce Lee at that time. And for me at least, it doesn't take away from any of the positives and achievements of Bruce Lee's career. It's just to build up the character of Cliff Booth and his abilities for later in the movie, when he comes face to face with the Manson family. Now, there is an upcoming film currently in production following on the story of Cliff 8 years after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, called The Continuing Adventures of Cliff Booth, written by Quentin Tarantino, and David Fincher is set to direct, and of course Brad Pitt reprising his role as Cliff Booth. You'll just have to indulge me for a moment while I get lost in Brad Pitt's eyes. Sorry. On to the final touches now, using the black liner pen to add in stubble, wrinkles, creases and face line, small details to the outfit, hair on the arms, forearms. Now on to the final stages, using my white highlighter pen, add the details to that shirt, adding in the reflection of light, bit of shadow there beneath him as well, and shading to the top. Bit more shading, bit more white highlighter, and we are about done with Mr. Booth. So there you go, that is Mr. Cliff Booth. Make sure to tune in next time, as I'm going to continue on with this movie's themes and do Rick Dalton and Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate. Please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.